Okay, is my voice? I hope. Okay. Okay, good. So students, so this is the last topic of that is the last 6 mark question. Then we go to the assignment and project oriented question. So quickly we will go through this one, and then we go to the project and assignment question, which is little easier. So first one, explain the changes in taxes. Explain the changes in taxes with the help of a diagram. So how ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದಾಗ, ತೆರಿಗೆಗಳು ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದಾಗ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಥಿಕತೆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಕನಾಮಿಕಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಉಂಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಉಂಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಎಂಬುದನ್ನ ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಲಿತೇವೆ. ಸ್ಟಡಿ ದಟ್. Okay, so here students, so what is this mainly? What is this topic? Explain the changes in taxation. Idu ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ? What is this telling? We are studying the effect of changes in taxes. That means if tax increase, what will happen to the income of the people, and what will happen to the aggregate demand? Then if taxes decrease, tax ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆದಾಗ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರ ಆದಾಯ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ aggregate demand ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, that is what we are studying. So here we are studying the effect of changes in taxation, students. Okay, effect of changes in taxation. So next slide. Okay, just look at this, students. Understand first of all, ಈ tax ಏನು, what is this tax, how will it affect the income? You have to study. First point, when tax increases, ತೆರಿಗೆಗಳು ಹೆಚ್ಚಾದಾಗ, see this word, disposable income of the people decreases. ನೋಡಿ, ನೀವು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ, if you pay, one question for you, if you pay tax, is that an income or an expense for you? Paying tax is an income or an expense for you? What do you say? Tax is an income or an expense? Yes. Yeah, good. Most of you said yes. Good. Aisha, Vinuta, and Shivani, all, yeah, Adil, yes. So all this is an expense. Tax is an expense for you. That means when you pay, let's say your income is 10,000 rupees. Okay, this is your income. 10,000 rupees is your income. Let's say your salary, you get a salary of 10,000, and government will say 10% lump sum tax on this 10,000. That means you have to pay 1,000 rupees. Correct? If you from 10,000 you pay 1,000 rupees, how much remained with you? 9,000 remained with you. So this 9,000 is called as disposable income. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆದಾಯದಿಂದ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮೈನಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಉಳಿತದೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಡಿಸ್ಪೋಸಬಲ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಈಗ ನೋಡಿ, ಈ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾದಾಗ, when tax becomes more, disposable income decreases. Correct? ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ 1,000ದಿಂದ 1,500 ಆದ್ರೆ, 1,500 ಆದ್ರೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ 15% ಆದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಯ್ತು, ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ became 1,500, but disposable income got reduced. It has become 8,500 now. 10,000 minus 1,500, correct? 8,500. So when taxes increases, disposable income of the people decreases. But the same way is the opposite. That is, when the taxes decreases, tax kadime adaga. Okay, tax kadime adaga, disposable income of the people increases. Now this is what is very important for us. Idu tumba important. Andre tax kadime adaga ಜನರ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಅವರು ಉಳಿತಾಯ ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ದೇ ಸೇವ್ ಅ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಮನಿ. ಓಕೆ, ನಾವು ಇಷ್ಟನ್ನ ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಟು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ. ಸೊ ಅಗೇನ್, ವೆನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಡಿಕ್ರೀಸಸ್, ಸಿ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಬ್ಲೂ, ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆದಾಗ ಡಿಸ್ಪೋಸಬಲ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ನೋಡಿ, ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಉಳಿತದೆ, ಪೀಪಲ್ ಸೇವ್ ಮೋರ್ ಮನಿ. ಹೀಗಿರುವಾಗ aggregate demand increases. ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ. ಯು ಸಿ, ಪೀಪಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಇನ್ ದೇರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ವೆನ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಮೋರ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್, ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲಿ they can consume more, they can buy more goods. So when they buy more goods and services, demand, see, buying goods is nothing but demand, no? So when they buy goods, aggregate demand increases. Do you remember, students, we studied the topic of aggregate demand. In which chapter? Which chapter did we study that about aggregate demand? In which chapter we studied about aggregate demand, aggregate supply, ex ante demand, ex ante aggregate supply? In which chapter did we study? Which chapter did we study about aggregate demand that we are studying here? Yeah. Okay. Equilibrium market. Yeah, that was in the chapter 4. Correct, Rakshita. Chapter 4. Yeah, previous chapter. That is in chapter 4. We studied about aggregate demand. Correct? You remember how we did this chart? See, this was the aggregate supply. Aggregate supply. And this was aggregate demand. Then again, this was investment. You remember that? You remember, we studied that. So aggregate demand and aggregate supply. So what happens here, you have to remember, tax kadime adaga income jasti janara kayali income ulitade, aggregate demand ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. So we go to the next slide. Now this is shown, whatever students, what we studied here, no, aggregate demand ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗುವುದು, that we are looking in the next slide. Here you see, here again, we bring back the same topic that we have studied earlier. We are bringing, that is in chapter 4, we made the chart of aggregate demand that we are studying. So here you look at this chart, students. Here, this is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. On the x-axis, income, and on the y-axis, aggregate demand is shown. Okay, AD means aggregate. So what is the meaning of aggregate? Aggregate demand. What is the meaning of aggregate? Can anybody tell me? What is the meaning of aggregate? Aggregate. Yeah. Aggregate. Good, Rakshita. Total. Sum. Kirti. Yes, correct. So aggregate means total. Okay. Aggregate means total. So aggregate demand ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗ್ತಾ. So what happens, students? Now you see, this is already given. This line you see, this is topmost line. That is y is equal to AD. Do you see this? Now, this is, as you know, this is the aggregate supply curve. Correct? Aggregate supply curve, which was earlier, you remember, this was 45-degree curve. Correct? 45-degree curve. So aggregate supply. I hope you may understand my handwriting. Aggregate supply. Okay, aggregate supply. This is the aggregate supply curve, students. So this is the aggregate supply. So this is the top one. Now, this one is called as a aggregate demand first curve. Okay, aggregate demand. This curve you see, students, one line you see, this is the aggregate demand curve. Now, formula is given here. C plus I plus G minus CT. Now, what is this C? C means autonomous consumption. Do you remember C dash earlier we studied? So this is autonomous consumption. I is autonomous investment. G is government expenditure. Okay, students, see, when in earlier we did not study about G. Okay, G we did not study in earlier chapter. We left G because G will be studied in this chapter. Okay, so G means government expenditure. That means, see, remember, students, government namgoskara kharchu madutte alva. ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್, ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿಯನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಈ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಮ್ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ದಿಸ್ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ನಮ್ ಕೈಗೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಟು ಅವರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್, ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಮೋರ್ ಮನಿ. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ aggregate demand will increase. Correct? So G means government expenditure. Government ina ಖರ್ಚು, ನಮಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಖರ್ಚು. Okay, keep it. Government expenditure. Okay, expenditure, government expenditure. G andre government expenditure. C, so we have studied this. C, autonomous consumption. I, autonomous investment. G, government expenditure minus CT. So what is C? Small c. Small c is equal to MPC. You remember? marginal propensity to consume, MPC. And T is taxes. Okay, minus CT. Yakendre tax new katbeku alva. Tax you have to pay, isn't it? You have to pay the tax. So it is minus CT as you see in this formula. Therefore, marginal propensity to consume into taxes, C into T. So adana minus yakendre tax nimkaili barala. ನೀವು ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ tax minus ಆಗ್ತದೆ. So you see students, this is the first aggregate demand curve. Okay, this is the aggregate demand curve and this is the supply curve, 45-degree curve, supply curve. So where it joins, where the demand curve and supply curve joins, it is called as E. This is the equilibrium. So OY dash, no, this is the OY1, OY dash, this much is, here, OY1. This is called as equilibrium income. Okay. Now students, what has happened? What are we here? What has happened? Here, tax kadime agtade. Tax is less. So when tax is less, what happens to income? Income is more or less. What happens to the income? Income is more or less. When tax is less, when government decreases the taxes, what happens to the income? Income is more. Yes, good. You're following. Good. Income is more. Yes, good. So when tax is less, income increases. Aga yenagatte income ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದಾಗ ಜನರು ಖರ್ಚು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, they will increase their consumption, correct? So naturally what happens? Our demand curve goes up. Okay, so this was the original demand curve. This was the original demand curve, aggregate demand curve. It will go up and the new aggregate demand curve is this, correct? The second, the upper demand curve is there, no? So this is the new aggregate demand curve. Same, formula is same. C plus I plus G dash minus CT. Same, okay? But here the tax is more or less. The tax is less here. Tax kadime agide, okay? Minus CT. Because government has reduced the tax. So demand curve has more, become more. So again, what happens? The place where aggregate demand curve, new demand curve, has cut the aggregate supply curve, that is called as equilibrium. Correct? This is the equilibrium. And so this equilibrium is marked by E dash, E apostrophe, no? E dash like this. So this is the new equilibrium. And what will be the new equilibrium income? O Y dash, 2 dash, Y 2 dash, no, or 2 apostrophe. So two single inverted commas. Okay, so this is the new aggregate income. So did you understand this graph, students? You have to simply remember, when tax is less, income is more. When income is more, people consume more. That means aggregate demand is more. Therefore, what happens? Aggregate demand curve moves up. When aggregate demand curve moves up, what happens? Again, we find a new equilibrium. This was an old equilibrium. We find a new equilibrium. New equilibrium is at a point where the supply curve, aggregate supply curve, that is a 45-degree curve, cuts the aggregate demand curve. And it cuts at E dash, okay? And we find this is the new income. This is the new income, that is Y double dash. Y double dash is the new equilibrium level of income, which is OY dash dash. Okay, students. So is this clear to you? Is the logic clear? Simply you have to remember that when taxes are less, income is more, aggregate demand is more. So aggregate demand curve will move up. Okay. Now, so with this, we go to the next slide. Idralli, you have to just remember. Students, do you remember we studied about investment multiplier? Investment multiplier, do you remember that? Investment multiplier. That means we told, if government spends on investment, naturally there is a multiplier effect. Income of the people increases, growth increases. And we told investment multiplier, the formula was delta y divided by delta a dash. Okay, where delta y means income or output, change in income or output when there is a change in delta a dash. A dash is a autonomous consumption plus autonomous investment. Okay, this you remember earlier, last chapter, previous chapters. Please remember, students, always in economics, what you studied in previous chapter will help you in the next chapter. So you remember this. If you have forgotten this, just go through that about a multiplier effect, the notes on multiplier effect. Okay, so delta y divided by delta a dash. This was investment multiplier. Okay, investment multiplier in a formula idu. Investment multiplier, investment ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಹಾಗೆ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್, ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೀಗ ಏನ್ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ? we are studied what we are studying is change in taxes ಅಲ್ವಾ? we are studying the changes in taxes. So ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೇಷನ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು. ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೇಷನ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆದಾಗ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? That means if tax changes, how will the income change? So that is what we are studying. So next point is that means the same answer. We are studying the tax multiplier. So students, remember, tax multiplier is given like this. See students, investment multiplier was given by the formula delta y by delta a dash, alva? Now tax multiplier is given by this formula delta y divided by delta t, okay, which is equal to, okay, you just remember this, delta y by delta t, which is equal to what? Minus c divided by 1 minus c. So this you have to remember, minus small c divided by 1 minus c. Okay, 1 minus c. So this is the formula. Okay, just you remember this. And you remember delta y by delta t, where delta y is known as change. Delta andre change alva? Delta andre change. So delta y means change in income. Delta t means change in taxes. Okay, change in taxes. What is c? What is c? Do you remember small c? What was c? MPC, correct? Correct? C is MPC, that is marginal propensity to consume, correct? So C means marginal propensity to consume. Okay, so for the time being, remember this tax multiplier. This is the second point in the answer. Okay, just go through this slide, students. Just see if there is any doubt, you can ask me now only. Tax multiplier. Okay, good. Okay, so now we finish this tax multiplier. Next is government expenditure multiplier. That means, so students, what are the various, can you give me the example for various expenses of the government? How does the government spend for you? How the government spends for you or spends for the people? Which are the various services run by the government? Could you tell me? Roads, yes. Hospitals, yes. Government hospitals, yes. Schools, yes. Very good. So you got an idea, no, students? So what is government expenditure? Rations, yes. Good. Yeah, good. Colleges, schools, colleges, rations, bridges, infrastructure facilities, everything. Now students, remember, ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಖರ್ಚು ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಖರ್ಚು, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಈಗ ಈ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಈ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? ಫ್ರಮ್ ವೇರ್ ವಿಲ್ ದ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ? ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ? ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಮ್ಮಿಂದ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೊ ನಾವು ಈ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್ ಅನ್ನ ಓದುವಾಗ, ವೆನ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ದಿಸ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್, ವಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್. So that is what, this is the third point we are studying in the next slide. That is government expenditure multiplier. Andre government expenditure anna madidre, okay, if government spends money, how will the income of the people changes? Alva? Iga government nimgoskara spend madidre, ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ, ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರ್ಗೆ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡಿ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಫ್ರೀ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಉಳಿತಾಯ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಪೀಪಲ್ ಸೇವ್ ದಟ್ ಮನಿ, ನೋ? People will, for example, in railways, you get subsidized travel, cheap travel you get. So because of railway, we can save lot of money, correct? You can save income. So that is what we study here, government expenditure multiplier, where delta Y divided by delta G, which is equal to 1 by 1 minus C. Okay, what is delta Y? Change in income. Andre government namgoskara bere bere saulabhya kotre, if government gives various services, how will our income change? What do you think, students? If government spends on you, income will increase or decrease? If government gives you various facilities, will your income increase or will your income decrease? Yeah, income will be more or less increase, correct? No? So you get it, no? Yes, very good. So you get, so that means when government gives us subsidized services, subsidized travel, our income is more. Okay, so that is delta Y. Change in income. Just we are studying change in income. Okay, then change in G, that means change in government expenditure. Change in government expenditure. Andre government expenditure ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು delta G ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Finally, we have a C, that is marginal propensity to consume. Okay, just like the previous one. So how we study about government expenditure multiplier? 1 divided by 1 minus C. Okay, 1 divided by 1 minus C. This you have to just remember, students. Okay, so did you get it? So we have two kinds of multiplier. One is the tax multiplier, where it was minus C divided by 1 minus C, correct? Government expenditure multiplier is 1 divided by 1 minus C. Okay, 1 divided by 1 minus C. Now you remember, students. Now with this, we work out. Now what we are studying here is tax multiplier is smaller in value compared to government expenditure multiplier. This is the fourth point that you have to study. A tax multiplier ಏನಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, that is minus C divided by 1 minus C. ಅದು ಅದರ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವುದರಿಂದ? ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್ ಗಿಂತ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Multiply is 1 divided by 1 minus C. Okay, so government expenditure multiplier is more, tax multiplier is less in value. Okay, less in value. So with this, we just look at this problem, students. That is, here only, assume that marginal propensity to consume, that is MPC, adra value is to 0.8. MPC or C, small c, adra value 0.8. Then government expenditure multiplier, adanna yav riti calculate ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? 1 divided by 1 minus C, which is equal to 1 divided by 1 minus C. C andre ಎಷ್ಟು? 0.8, correct? 0.8 here, which is equal to 1 divided by 0.2, which is here, which is equal to 5. Andre, if government increases the expenditure, andre namgoskara government 100 rupees anna increase ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಎಷ್ಟರಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? 100 into 5 ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ? 5 ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್ 5 ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿದೆ. 100 into 5 ಅಂದ್ರೆ 500 ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ನಮ್ದು ಇನ್ಕಮ್ 500 ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 100 rupees ಸೇವೆ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ, ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ 100 rupees ಸೇವೆ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ, ಜನರ ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಂ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಅದು 500 ಇಂದ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, 5 ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ in that economy, MPC should be 0.8. Okay, MPC should be 0.8. Okay, again I tell you, students, 5 means we have found out this 5, no? Found out this 5. That means if government spends 1 rupee ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ 5 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಎಂದು ಈ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲದ ಮೂಲಕ ನಾವು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ. if income is 100, if the government spends 100 rupees, our income will increase by 500. Okay, you keep this point, students. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the at the end of the class. I will give you some time. Then we will go to the second one, that is tax multiplier. Tax multiplier in a formula no delta y divided by delta t, alva. So which is equal to minus c divided by 1 minus c. Okay, so our economy ಏನಾಗಿದೆ MPC or small c is equal to 0.8 ಆಗಿದೆ. ಹೀಗಿರುವಾಗ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಮೈನಸ್ ಸಿ ಡಿವೈಡೆಡ್ ಬೈ 1 ಮೈನಸ್ ಸಿ. ಮೈನಸ್ ಸಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೈನಸ್ 0.8 ಡಿವೈಡೆಡ್ ಬೈ 1 ಮೈನಸ್ 0.8. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್? ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ನೋ? ಯಾ, ಈಸ್ ಈಕ್ವಲ್ ಟು 0.8 divided by 0.2. ಹೇಗೆ 1 minus 0.8 0.2 ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಮೈನಸ್ 0.8 divided by 0.2 is equal to, ಈಗ ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೈನಸ್ ಆಗುವಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಕೂಡ ಮೈನಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಕೂಡ ಮೈನಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು. 2 ones are 2 4s are, answer is minus 4. That means when the government reduces the tax by 100, equilibrium income increases by 400. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ 1 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈಕ್ವಿಲಿಬ್ರಿಯಂ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ 4 ರೂಪಾಯಿಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ನೋಡಿ, ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆದ್ರೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ? when tax is less, income increases. So how much it is less? Let's say if the tax is reduced by 1 or 100, 0 ಹಾಕೋಣ. 100 increases, tax is decreased by, reduces by 100 rupees. 100 rupees tax ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಜನರ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ 400 rupeesಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಜನರ ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇವೆಗಳ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ 400 rupees ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಇನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈಯರ್. This is all, students. So again, I recap. You want to just, I will just recap this entire now what we have done. We will just go through a recap. So students, what happens here? Here we are studying tax change ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ. When we change tax, how will it affect the income? We are studying, we are learning that when government decreases the tax, when the government increases the tax, income decrease ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ when the government decreases the tax, ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗುವಾಗ income ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, that is simple logic. Then we studied this in the form of a chart where we have told that because tax are reduced, aggregate demand has increased. So new aggregate demand curve is formed here. Okay, new aggregate demand curve and new equilibrium income is formed here. Then we studied the tax multiplier where the formula was minus c by 1 minus c, and a government expenditure multiplier where the formula was 1 divided by 1 minus c. Okay, this was the formula. Then we studied that tax multiplier is smaller in value compared to government expenditure multiplier. Okay, then we worked out this sum where we have found out that government expenditure multiplier is 5. That means if government spends 1 rupee, the people's income will increase by 5 rupees. Similarly, when government decreases tax by 1 rupee, people's income will increase by 4 rupees. So with this, students, I will put this class, the recorded class, I'll put in the group. You can go through this. If you have any doubt right now, you can ask me, students. Do you have any doubts?